as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm going to have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcasts_hockey. We are live, facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, youtube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we sit at 100, and Patrick Waugh, who appeared last night in the Bell Center, and of the subscribers, Patrick Waugh, of course, former Montreal Canadian great, Stanley Cup, two-time Stanley Cup champion with the Montreal Canadiens, and of course, a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the Colorado Avalanche. He probably is not listening to this podcast at this time because of the cups are still stuck in his ear. You can also subscribe to the audio after that, as we are here to recap Game 4. I'm sorry, we will be going to 5 as my broom is not here. The Tampa Bay Lightning have to go back home as the Montreal Canadiens have staved off elimination with a 3-2 overtime victory. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kev. It's been nice to have a few days of not scorching hot weather and finally making some headway in unpacking my new place. Yes,
that is good to hear, as I'm doing good radio when I my diploma in case as I'm talking and drinking water at the same time. My diploma is valuable. Devin, how are you?
Oh man, I'm all right. Had a very interesting weekend, very scary weekend. We almost lost my fiance Kaylin and I almost lost our dog Gord. She came back from the park, heavy panting. We gave her a bone, which wasn't smart, and she inhaled a piece of the bone, got stuck in her throat, and continued to struggle to breathe. And so Kaylin had to stick her entire forearm down Gord's throat to try and relieve Gord of that piece, and was successful in doing so, but still took her to emergency afterwards because she still had a hard time breathing, and everything's fine, thankfully. But it was it was a hell of a Saturday, Sunday for my household. But other than that, you know what, everything's fine now. So we're happy to have her home, and she's doing pretty well.
Well, I'm glad to hear. Joel is here with us. Hello, Joel.
Hey guys, yeah, happy to hear that Gord made it through, Devin. That's a scary situation for sure.
It is very, yeah.
You know, I'm a proud papa to a fur baby as well, and I don't know if Gord is a tip to the Tragically Hip or Gord Downey or what the name's going on there, but my puppy's name is Bob Cajun, after my favorite Tragically Hip song. So,
oh, there you go.
But yeah, guys, I'd just like to take the time here. I'd like to start off the show by addressing something pretty serious, if I may. It's kind of been weighing on my mind a lot lately, and I think your show, this podcast, is kind of the perfect platform to finally kind of come clean and admit this. It's been a long time that I've been dealing with this, and I just kind of wanted to come out with it and sort of get it off my chest. I just like to take the time to apologize to absolutely nobody, baby. Habs in 7. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, it's that almost, last night, some of us were a little bit more excited about the game than others.
Who's that guy? He looks like a complete fucking tool.
Love it.
There's a few F-bombs in there, but yeah, that's for sure. It was what a great game, you know. I'm still just shocked. Like I watched my team get a win in the Stanley Cup final. Like no sweep. I'm a happy boy here this morning.
That's good. Before we'll delve into the game, we do have to. We want to start with the unfortunate tragedy that was announced yesterday morning. Matthias Kivlenieks, Columbus Blue Jackets goaltender, died from a 4th of July event. He died of a chest trauma from an errant fireworks mortar blast, and it was not a fall as it was previously reported. Police in Novi, Michigan said the firework tilted slightly and started to fire toward people nearby Sunday night. Kivlenieks was in a hot tub and tried to get clear with several other people. And the initial autopsy determined that Kivlenieks died from a percussive injury caused by the powerful blast from the fireworks. It's just a very, very sad situation. The tweets were pouring in tributes. Not only from the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, but from elsewhere as well. And kind of we'll get just before we get into the game, we do have to kind of respect that part of it. Joel, we'll start with kind of your thoughts on that, and we'll go around. And
yeah, I mean, absolutely. My obviously my thoughts go out to the entire Blue Jackets organization, the NHL brethren as a whole. You know, like. It's for me, it's really sad to see when you see guys like that go, because they're still so young and they still have so much career ahead of them. Like, we don't know how good he kind of could have been. For me as a Canucks fan in Vancouver, obviously it has kind of shades of Luc Bourdon in that, you know, he's such a good young player and there's still so much ahead of him. But you know, it's pretty sad when something tragic like that happens. And yeah, it's just a terrible tragedy, and you know, you hate to see those kind of things. And unfortunately, we've seen it before with fireworks, and yeah, it's something that I think we should probably look at as a society, like if we want, well, especially during these dry summers and fireworks causing all kinds of havoc, and in terms of forest fires and that, but. Yeah, sad situation for sure. I don't think there's a whole lot else that we can say about that for sure.
Yeah, it's really just heartbreaking. We're talking about a kid who was really starting to etch out a career too. In the World Championships, he shut out Canada. He had a 38 save shutout versus Canada in the World Championships just 6 weeks ago, and now we're mourning his loss. It's heartbreaking, and as you said, Joel, it's not only to the Columbus Blue Jackets but the whole hockey community. You've got the players that he would have trained with in the summer and played with that no longer are on the Columbus Blue Jackets, stretching from Nick Foligno who got traded to the Leafs, and just everyone else. It's just heartbreaking. And you talked about the Canucks connection. There's also Ian Clark, who was probably one of the big reasons why he became a Columbus Blue Jacket. I'm pretty sure he was part of who scouted him and brought him in and mentored him for a few years. So it's heartbreaking. And yeah, my thoughts go out to his family, his friends, and anyone who knew him.
Yeah, he was a very, very bright individual. Every single person who tweeted yesterday talked about his smile and his positive attitude, and it's just tragic, sad. I'm on the same page as Joel, saying that fireworks are a terrible thing. Honestly, if you're not a professional, do not use them. In my personal opinion. So, but yeah, massive loss for the NHL and everybody who knew him.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to be competing for a spot as well next year, with either Merzlikis or Corpusalo being traded or possibly picked up by the Seattle Kraken. Who knows? So it's a tough day. And all the thoughts to the Blue Jackets fan hockey community and families and friends as well. But we'll move on to the game. The Montreal Canadiens, when they need something, when they need a moment, the Montreal Canadiens are one of the best organizations in hockey. That when you need a legend to stand up and be there for you to make a moment, they have them out of the woodwork. They have a back pocket of them, and they pulled them out. Yvonne Cournoyer, socially distanced from Guy Lafleur, socially distanced from Patrick Waugh, who I think, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, that is, it was, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first times he's been in the Bell Center since the trade.
Yeah, he's been in the Bell Center a couple times, with, I believe it was Jean Beliveau's passing, and I want to say Henri Richard, they did something for him that he might have been there, but I don't think it was like the first time. But yeah, it's very rare to see Patrick in Montreal, especially in the Bell Center.
And as a representative of the Canadiens, which he was that last night.
Yeah, exactly. It was. It's kind of nice to see a sort of tip of the cap between generations, if you will. There, it's pretty cool that the Habs have relationships and players like that in their history where they can just kind of bring them in and out whenever they want, sort of thing, and just keep that tradition of winning around for sure.
Yeah, but and again, the other thing with Montreal is not 1989. I mean, although the Canadiens have not been to the Stanley Cup Final since 1993, 1989 is one of only two times in history that a team has won a Stanley Cup, has lifted the Stanley Cup to in Montreal, an opposing team, which was the Calgary Flames, and Tampa Bay came out with a start. It looked like, my gosh, it looked like we were going to be celebrating another Tampa Bay. It looks like that was all going to end, and but credit Montreal for kind of hanging in there, taking the punches, and finding a way to win. I don't know where we want to start with this game. Maybe we'll start with Sean. Where do you want to start with this game?
Well, I think it's just hilarious that after allowing or getting one shot in like the first 10 minutes, they get the first goal. And I kind of called it, but it was more of a joke more than anything else, because I was just like, what else is gonna it just felt like it was gonna happen. But the Tampa's been doing that for 3 out of 4 games where they have controlled significant time on the ice and possession and being able to shut down the transition game of the Habs. And the Habs have not been able to get much offensive time because of that. Tampa deserved a better result last night, but that's just evening things out for Montreal deserving a better result in game 2. Josh Anderson stepping up and getting 2 goals last night is huge. And then Alexander Romanov, like, we've been sort of saying maybe it's time for them to play him, and he rewarded them with a seeing eye shot from the point and getting that goal. But it's awesome. I really hope that this is this sort of a start of a quote unquote new series, and we can get at least one or two more games out of this, because that was fun to watch. It was good hockey. It was structured at times, very structured at times, but that doesn't necessarily mean bad to watch hockey. I think it was fun hockey to watch, and the limited fans in the Bell Center definitely made it sound like there was at least twice as many, if not 3 times as many as what were in there, and that was awesome.
Go for it, Joe.
Well, yeah, no. I agree with you, Sean. I don't think it was like perhaps the cleanest game. It was a little sloppy at times. There was lots of turnovers in the neutral zone and that. But yeah, I mean, you just kind of had that feeling, didn't you, that the Habs were going to pull this one out? Like you just when they got that first goal and they finally got up for the first time in the whole series, and you're like, holy shit, they have the lead. Like you just kind of felt like, okay, they're not going to lose it here tonight. Like they're not going to, watch another team like the Flames in '89 lift a cup on Montreal ice. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think putting in Romanov and him stepping on the ice 7 seconds and he's got a goal in the back of the net, and that's your shift, kid. Go ahead, sit back down. That's it's pretty cool for him to kind of hop in and be effective that way. Having Kotkaniemi out of the lineup for Evans was a big, bold move, but, in tight defensive checking minutes where you kind of needed to shut down their top guys, it's nice to have a guy like Jake Evans on the ice that, can play away from the puck, I think, a little better than Kotkaniemi. But no, big win for the Habs. And, Carey made a number of nice saves last night, but again, I don't think that he necessarily stole them the game. I'm still expecting Carey Price to steal 2 games in this series, 2-3 games. And, it's not over until it's over. Like, I really don't think that it's impossible for the Habs to win another one and climb back into the series.
It's funny that you talk about Carey Price that way, because I was going to give him tons of props for last night. I thought he played outstanding. He played better. That was his best game that he's played in the series. I still think that he didn't play his best in the first 3 games, but he was good enough to win, to get them to win. I think in the majority of those games. Last night he had 32 saves, 9.941 save percentage, and in facing elimination here in the playoffs, his record is obviously 4-0. Goals against of 1.85 and overall save percentage of 0.944. That says a lot to me that he's giving them enough of a chance to actually win each game, and I thought he played fantastic. Joel talked about Jake Evans. I thought he was a unsung hero within this game. He was around the puck. He had a good few chances during the game, and we're talking about the expansion draft here pretty soon, and that's somebody who Montreal might actually lose within the expansion draft, depending on which way Bergevin decides to go with the protection list. And if Seattle gets him, man, you're getting a hell of a player that is very, very underrated and maybe doesn't get as much props as I think he should. Nick Suzuki last night was phenomenal again. You talk about someone like we're starting to talk about him more. The media starting to talk about him more, especially with the exposure during the playoffs. But he is a player, someone who you can definitely see being a number 1 center for the next decade for the Canadiens. So it's pretty cool to watch a young player like that play as well as he has. And finally, Josh Anderson decides to step up and be the player that Bergevin has been wanting and figuring that he would be consistently throughout the playoffs. But that's the thing, is that you look around that lineup of on Montreal. They have a lot of unsung heroes that deserve a lot of credit, and Romanov is one of them too. And I thought Brett Kulak did pretty decent. I mean, a bit of a miscue on the Patrick Maroon goal, but hey, those are going to happen, and especially when you haven't played for a long time like Kulak has. So overall, good on Montreal. But I thought Tampa, they hit 3 posts. They were so close to getting ahead in the game and winning the series, win the Stanley Cup. And if you hit the post, quarter inch one way, quarter inch the other way. It could go in or bounce out like it did. So, if I'm Tampa, you just got to keep on going through the process of what they're doing, because eventually they'll be successful. And, sorry, Joel, I still think Tampa has it. I'm with Sean, though. I want to see at least one or two more games, but I think Tampa does have it. And if they don't, it comes down to, okay, well, did Tampa lose this or did Montreal win it? And that's a topic for another day for sure.
Just before there was one post. It was Kucherov. It was I want to say it was late in the third.
Yep,
he went. He had a poutine near the Bell Center with the crowd there. Kind of came back. No one was watching him and dinged one off the post. I was like, that if he scores that, he probably won the Conn Smythe there too. But whatever. But Ben Sherratt, I thought, played his best game last night for the Canadians. I mean, he was all over the place, including behind the Tampa net at one point. But he was all over. He was all over the place. Joel, Dan Riccio tweeted out that Suzuki could get an Eriksson Ek type contract at some point. I could possibly see that. Here's my big concern with Montreal, though, right now, is they cannot get offense outside of Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Not really. Like, Romanov scored, sure, but the forwards that got points last night, Anderson got the 2 goals from Suzuki and Caulfield, and the only other forward that got a point last night was Jake Evans. They are not getting any offense from anywhere else other than the Suzuki, Caulfield, and whoever they're putting on the left side, which was Josh Anderson yesterday. And to me, that is if they are going to get a couple of extra games, that needs to change.
Oh yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I think that the frontline scoring obviously has been what's been keeping Montreal afloat, especially in these, the Stanley Cup final, at least in terms of goal scoring. But yeah, guys like Corey Perry and, Philip Deneau, there's a lot of guys that just need to get going here. Like it's time that those third, fourth lines start chipping in a little bit if they can. And I get it that Tampa Bay is very stingy on defense, and they got a big, tall defensive core, and they're not easy to get around. But you can see the drive and the want. Like, Brendan Gallagher's obviously been snake bitten a little bit, but I still feel like he's chipping in and he's doing everything he can, even if he isn't putting points up on the board, right? And that's kind of another one of those guys that just they're a little bit snake bitten and they just need to find it, right? And all it takes is a couple bounces or two, and I think Montreal has the capability of potting a lot more, But yeah, to your point, Tampa Bay did hit a bunch of posts yesterday, and that's what I mean. It kind of felt like me when you see those types of things happen. You're like, oh, okay, it's maybe the hockey gods are just on our side tonight, and it's ours to win. And hopefully they, the ghosts of Montreal pass, and the hockey gods keep favoring the Habs here moving forward. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of holes that to fill scoring roles up front offensively right now that the Habs got to figure out right quick if they want to keep scoring, keep up with Tampa's high-powered offense.
Yeah, they need to find a way. Maybe it's time to bring in Thomas Tatar. Maybe it's time to find a way to figure a way to get him in the lineup, because it's time to. They do need to find offense, and you can't rely on just Suzuki and Caulfield's line to do it. I don't. Maybe Suzuki gets an 8-year deal, but he's someone that has a bigger ceiling than Joel Eriksson Ek, in my opinion, and will be going short term and then long term, or going long term with big money. Like, I think he's going to be closer to more close. He'll be looking more at what happens with Pettersson and compare it to what Barzal got more than anything else. That's how good I think he is. I look at how he plays, and he is a 200-foot game, and how patient he is with the puck and how creative he gets at times. It's so fun to watch him play. And as I said, I think everyone saw the potential in what Suzuki could be after watching last year's playoffs and last season, but we weren't sure whether or not he could keep it up the full season. And I don't think he did, but he's definitely stepped it up these playoffs. He's taken it to an extra gear. He's been, in my opinion, outside of Carey Price, he's been the best Montreal Canadian in these playoffs. And it's not even close. And that's not a knock on someone like Cole Caulfield, who's been very exciting and the media darling, but it's been Suzuki who's been driving the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he sort of reminds me. Sorry, Devin. Just to quickly, he sort of reminds me a little bit. He's got some Braden Point in him.
Yeah, he definitely does. The crazy thing about it is that he has 1 year left on his ELC, and then he's an RFA. So overall, just he has 1 more year to really solidify himself to being a top center. Top 1 or 2 center within this league, and with the growth and development and getting the chemistry together with Cole Caulfield, you know that they're going to be on a line next year. It's a scary tandem between those two, and as I said before in this podcast, those two together for the next decade, man, that's a scary tandem.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think Sean made a great point though in terms of the comparables to the Suzuki contract, right? I mean, when you look at how he performed last year's playoffs, how he did, during this regular season, and then how he's performing in these playoffs, yeah, I think he's pretty much right on par with that kind of benchmark where you're going to see the deal out of Pettersson and Barzal. Like, I think he's kind of right in that ballpark with those guys. Maybe it took him a little longer to get there. Perhaps not as like highly coveted as the other two, obviously, but boy, we're seeing the dividends of what hard work can do, because he's put himself in a nice position to earn some big money for sure. And I mean, if you're Bergevin and you're kind of looking at that, like, do you want to, with a player like that, like, it's kind of the same situation in Vancouver right now, where do you want to give these guys, a bridge deal and then have them make even more after 2 or 3 seasons on the bridge deal, or do you want to kind of try and lock them up for the best part of their careers now at hopefully a reasonable price? But I mean, I think if you're looking long term, he's an $8 million player for sure. I mean, short term, maybe you can get him a little less and then kind of bridge that. But yeah, just a terrific postseason from Nick Suzuki for sure. He's showing that he's going to be a force on Montreal for years to come.
Well, if we're going through a comparison of what Kev said, Braden Point got a 3-year deal at 6.75, and I don't see that being unreasonable for Suzuki to get one for the next 3 years and then bump up after that. But yeah, you really think that if you are the player, that's what you want. But if you're a GM, you want to make sure that they are locked up for as long as you can, for as little as you can, because even within the next let's say 4 years from now, I believe that that's when the cap will do its little bump up, and it won't be a flat cap, and you got to expect that they'll be wanting more, and maybe not being one of those players that you can look back on and being like, well, there's this very team-friendly deal, just because of where the cap is and how much players going to be getting.
Okay, can I just throw out a couple of scenarios here? It's sort of to see where this will probably help where we put Suzuki. Joel, what are you paying to keep Danault?
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, I don't have Danault's numbers in front of me here in terms of his offense, but obviously it's his play away from the puck where he kind of makes his money. That's kind of his bread and butter of his game. Oh, I think, Philip Danault is easily a $3 million player, probably more. I think a lot of teams would love to have a player like Philip Danault on their third, fourth line. And if you're looking for a center that can fill those roles, that's typically speaking what you're going to be paying. So,
okay. Does anyone disagree with that amount?
I'll be surprised if he decides to stay in Montreal. I think he'll get between 3 and 3.5. I think there might be a quote unquote hometown discount, or just because you've done something exciting in these playoffs. Maybe you want to try and build on that, and knowing the cap is a bit. He's coming off of a 3-year deal where he was making just over $3 million on the cap, and his actual salary this year was 3.25. But if he does hit the market, I think he could get upwards of 4. I think that's just like he is someone that you want to be your third line center, who can take tough minutes but still be able to help drive offense and be a distributor in the middle to some good wingers if you've got the right wingers for him. So I think in the right situation and the right team, I think they could definitely go 4+ for what he'll make. But if I'm Montreal, I'm going to try and keep him under 3.5 for sure.
I think they have to try and keep under 3.5. They only have 10.6 in projected salary cap, and they still have to sign Noel Armia, Kotkaniemi, Arturi Lehkonen, depending if you want to bring those guys back. And then on the back end, you also have Cale Fleury. He's coming out. He's still an RFA, so you won't get that much. But and depending if they want to get a bit more scoring, getting a UFA in there, maybe at a cheaper price, then I don't know. If you're Marc Bergevin, you definitely want to be under or around 3.5 if he's up, because if he does hit the market, Danault, he'll probably, I know Sean, he'll probably get 4 to 4.5, maybe even 5, depending on which team is desperate enough and it really needs that shutdown center.
What are you paying Kotkaniemi?
Oh, he's getting a bridge deal. It won't be it. You look at what he hasn't really broken out. So I don't think he's going to get a big deal unless they're able to convince him to go long term at a little bit more expensive. But it still won't be. If there's anyone who could maybe do something that's similar to what Joel Eriksson did, it is Kotkaniemi, in my opinion. But I don't think he's going to get that 5 point something that Eriksson got. But I really see Kotkaniemi getting a short-term deal that will be in the 2 to 3 range, I think.
I instantly thought about Sam Bennett and the underwhelming returns that you're expecting from a player like that, and he signed a 2-year deal back in 17, starting 17-18 for 1.9, and then another 2-year deal that was 2.2 or 2.5. So I think that somewhere around there would be something that Kotkaniemi will probably get. Obviously, he's going to push for a little bit more, but yeah, he hasn't really broken out yet, and that is totally fine. You know, I think he's a formidable player that will be a big role within that middle 6 lineup for the Montreal Canadiens. And but if I was Bergevin, I'd go 3 years at 2.5.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit of a tougher one, right? Because I feel like with Philip Danault, you kind of know what you're getting. Like, you know, he's the shutdown guy. You know, he's good in the faceoffs. You know a lot about him, right? Whereas Kotkaniemi, even though he's been in the league for quite a while, and you look at his age and you're like, really, has he played that many games? Well, you still you're not quite sure how high the ceiling is on this kid, right? I think he's a terrific offensive player. You know, obviously there's gaps in his defensive game, and you see him he's obviously gotten better across the last couple seasons at playing away from the puck. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at signing him up for a contract, yes, I think that the bridge deal is the way to go, just because then you can get, see what he's about in the next 2-3 years, how he develops, and not have to sink money into him long term and then, 4 4, 5, 6 years down the road, if you still have him under contract and he's not living up to that, it's, you know, it's a bad look for you. But for me, like, when I look at it, like, I think, you know, if you're going to give Philip Deneau at least $3.5 million, you'd have to pay Kotkaniemi somewhere in that range, right? Like, would you pay Philip Deneau more than you'd pay Kotkaniemi?
Yes.
For me, yeah, probably, right? Because, again, you know, the defensive responsibility and the minutes that he can eat up. But if you have Deneau going for, say, $4 million, like, I could see Kotkaniemi coming in at $3.5. I think both of those guys obviously are going to be asking for a little bit of bump in terms of their salary, and you know, I can see other teams offer sheeting a guy like Kotkaniemi if they don't come to terms.
Kotkaniemi's 21 and Deneau's 28, so that's a big difference within development as well, and that needs to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think $3 million is the very top of what Kotkaniemi is going to get in the off season. I think that would be for a 4+ year deal. I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 year deal at the very most, and I think Devin's right in terms of the comparison to Sam Bennett, in terms of someone who came in like it was that they had high expectations for him, and he played decent in his first year, but hasn't quite been able to build on that the way everyone expected. So I think it's going to be a 2-year deal. I think it's going to be, the more I think about it, less than $2.5 million, if you even reach $2 million. Just because you look at his points, like, he's got 62 points in 171 games. So that's a 0.36 per game rate. That's not great. That's not something that you're going to want to lock in long term at even very good big money on. I think it is going to be a two-year deal at right around $2 million. I think is what's going to end up happening with Kotkaniemi. And then bring it back to the talk about Suzuki. Suzuki's the guy who drives the bus. Like, I think, Kevin, you're right in terms of using that the Braden Point contract as a good comparable, as a player who's the drives the bus for Montreal. Point's the guy who drives the bus for Tampa, and he may not be the most skilled player on the team, although I think you could argue that Suzuki might actually be that on Montreal right now.
Oh, he's an incredible passer.
Oh yeah,
he's a great passer.
I think that's what it is, because when you compare him to Barzal and Pettersson, it's not there. The point totals aren't quite there. The point rate production isn't quite at their level, but he's way ahead of Kotkaniemi, way ahead of Joel Eriksson in terms of that, and he's still a 200-foot player that you feel comfortable putting out there on the penalty kill. And look, he nearly scored a shorthanded goal to end the game last night.
Yeah.
I think he is looking at probably a 2 to 3 year deal in the high 6s, low 7s after next season.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking as well. But it is like what I think the Canadians have some decisions to make, though, in terms of what you do with Deneau and Kotkaniemi and Jake Evans. What's Jake Evans' role going to be if Deneau leaves? I can see Jake Evans taking over that shutdown role from Philip Deneau too. So, yeah, I mean, maybe this is more off-season talk, and we're kind of burying the Canadians, even though they still have a chance here. But just to quickly flip to Tampa Bay, the interesting thing to me about Tampa Bay this series is it isn't Kucherov, Point, Stamkos. It hasn't been the guys that are leading the charge. It's been the Barclay Goodrows, the Blake Colemans, the Patrick Maroonistys that are getting the goals. Yes, hashtag Maroonisty. If he wins, it's 3 straight cups. It's a dynasty for Patrick Maroon. It's those types of players that group that is getting the points for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they've the amount of depth that they've had been able to rely on is there. And if not with the lack of trying from that top two units either, but overall that depth is the reason why they've come so far, is because when those guys aren't firing, like the Kucherovs, the Points, and Stamkos, and I guess Sorelli's in that mix now too. They do have that veteran presence of the Maroonisty, as Kevin pointed out. It's very apparent that you do need that veteran presence, and having Gaudreau and Blake Coleman, we've been talking about them for the past few podcasts here, and how good they actually are. And those are the type of players on your third and I guess fourth line with Maroon that makes them successful. Look at the HBK line when Pittsburgh was winning cups. That's a third line. So overall, it's kind of it makes a lot of sense, and that's where the depth really comes into. If you're going to go far in the playoffs, you need to make sure that you have that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. That's kind of the difference maker that you've seen across these last two seasons for the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Is the guys on the third line, fourth line that are chipping in with a goal here and there, in addition to their top line piling it on, right? It's amazing what you can do when you're $16 million over the cap. But which Gary Bettman actually did address. They said they were going to do something about that. But again, a conversation for a different day. But I feel like for the most part, throughout this season, and even in our preseason address that I made, I said that the depth of Montreal will be what drives this team, right? And having all those skilled players in droves in your third and fourth line, and I think that you're seeing the difference it can make having those types of guys in your bottom six for a team like Tampa. Yeah, they're on the verge of winning back-to-back cups because they have those types of players in their lineup.
And sorry, we're gonna say something, Sean.
Yeah, they're great, and don't forget about Yanni Gourde on that line as well. And it was quite funny to see them all sitting in the penalty box together. That line does everything together, apparently. Yeah. But it's they fit a role. They play it really well, and they're underratedly skilled, especially Blake Coleman. Like, I don't think people realize how good he is. Like, he could be a third piece on a top line. He could be a really good piece on the second line, but on this team, he's on the third line, and it's been to Tampa's benefit that they have that great third line that they can throw out against any line in the league and not feel like they're giving too much up.
Yeah. I just what's going to rage everyone, and we'll probably dig into this more, is when Coleman and Gaudreau, if they sign, they take like the hometown discount. That will frustrate. That hockey Twitter will be very excited for those things when that happens, when and if that happens.
As I said, it all depends on what that contract looks like. We discussed this last night in our chat, and I just look at that, and Barclay Goodrow is yet to make over $1 million a season in the NHL, and Coleman hasn't really made that much either. He's coming off a $1.8 million, so he's made a decent amount, but they're both 28, 29. This isn't like they're younger players that have 5, 6, 7 years of good earning years left in their career. Their best earning years are all, I'd argue, behind them in terms of where they're at in their careers. So it really depends on what that actually looks like. But they're also still going to need to shed salary. They're like, even right now with all those players assigned, they're still over the actual cap. Like, that's how ridiculous this lineup is, and why there's people upset about why we think it should have been called cap circumvention. And So they're still going to need Seattle to take some cap off of them. Kevin, you tweeted out that Seattle would be smart to look at Matthew Joseph as a player. Maybe they get him and they get Tyler Johnson, because Tampa's needs to shed salary if they want to bring back some players like a Blake Coleman or a Barclay Goodrow, because they're over the cap right now and they still have a lot. They still need to fill out the roster. So I still think that the most likely happening with the expansion draft with Tampa is that they'll pay Seattle to take someone like a Tyler Johnson, who they tried to waive last year and hope that someone would pick him up, and he'd be a local kid who comes home because he's from Spokane.
Yeah. So sorry, just to make a point here. So this Tampa Bay team, if they lose players like that, it's going to remind me of Chicago back in the early 2010s when they lost players like, maybe not as good as, say, a player like Dustin Byfuglien or Andrew Ladd and Shaw, and those kind of character core guys that aren't necessarily, the superstars of the team, but they get the job done, right? And I feel like if Tampa loses too many of those moving forward, they're just not going to be the same team that we've seen for the last 2 years here, for sure.
Yeah, and John Cooper said that those were the two pieces that they were missing when they got swept by the Blue Jackets 2 years ago. So they definitely need them. I don't see them taking hometown discount. To Sean's point, they are past their prime, but man, this is a big copycat league, and every single other team in this in the NHL are looking at the Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman and wondering, okay, well, if we get them, how much of a difference are they going to make, in the sense that, okay, they'll potentially could win a cup in Tampa Bay, and those type of players get paid. Just ask Troy Brouwer.
Boardman gets paid. That's right. David Clarkson. David Clarkson contract, right? Where you're investing in that type of player, expecting some kind of return, and maybe he's not the player you thought he was, but yeah, no, I agree.
David Clarkson, his 8-year contract just came up. Technically, it was signed 8 years ago, a few days ago from today, which I saw online, and that was just a bit of a kick in the nuts to see that. But yeah, those players do get paid.
The only thing I'll say is it's amazing what no taxes, wearing flip-flops and shorts, sunny weather near the beach does for work and where you want to live. That's one thing. And also the opportunity to three-peat. That's what makes me wonder, maybe they may take a little bit less if they get the opportunity to three-peat. That could be an option. But can I just talk about Matthew Joseph for a bit here? Can I bring something up here? One assist, 2 hits, 1 block, 1 giveaway, 8 minutes and 38 seconds. Like, this guy is not even playing 10 minutes a game, and he's making an impact. Like, it's, to me, sure, Tyler Johnson would be a nice thing, but if I'm the Kraken, if the Lightning expose him, that it's hard for me not to at least strongly consider Joseph.
Oh, like I said, they may get him and Tyler Johnson, because Tampa doesn't have. They've traded away a lot of their draft capital that would be nice for Seattle to have, other than I could see him being part of the package that allows them to where they get Joseph and Johnson. So I think there's a good chance that they will get him and Tyler Johnson because of that. Like I said, you look at Tampa had projected cap hit right now for next season is 86.5 and change on an 81.5 cap.
Without re-signing these guys.
And they still have Coleman, Goodrow, to re-sign, let alone Colton Ross and Alex Barboulay, who could be one of the next guys. Those guys could be the next guys that come up and be sort of the Matthew Josephs, the Yanni Gourds, and that type of player. And then let alone they only have 5 defensemen signed, and they need to, and they don't necessarily. They don't have an NHL caliber backup either. So they're going to have to lose cap. They're going to have to, in the expansion draft, as well as working with other teams to create more cap space for them. Maybe looking to find another player who's injured, and they can expose that cap circumvention loophole again. So,
not to mention Cal Foote, Adam Foote's son. Little plug for my buddy Len down in California. He actually had the pleasure to train Cal Foote a few years back. But they don't forget about him, because he's a good young little defenseman as well.
Yeah, all the Kelowna Rockets do is develop NHL defensemen. That's all that they do.
I just laughed that Devin called him little, and he's 6'3", 209.
Wow, he's 22 is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Hi, little Cal. I'm Big Kevin. And I'm 5'8". Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens Wednesday. Who knows? I mean, Joel's right. Carey Price hasn't stolen a game yet. The Canadians have been in this situation before. They were down 3-1 and found a way to make a series. So they've got that experience behind him. Not only that, I forgot, even though he hasn't been a factor in the series, Tyler Toffoli was part of a 0-3 down 0-3 come back with the LA Kings. Yeah. So who knows? We could be talking after Wednesday's game about a game 6.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Montreal's road record is 7-4 in these playoffs. Like they've played really well on the road. I think Carey is something like 11-6 all time now when he's facing elimination. So he has the penchant to show up in big games. Carey recently passed Jacques Plante for 3rd all time in Habs career playoff games. He's only got Ken Dryden and the aforementioned Patty Roy ahead of him there. So there's a lot of history on the side and momentum here for Montreal to try and pull this out and make a drive here. Like, do I really feel in my heart of hearts that they have the capability of Carey playing on his head and Toffoli gets going, Gallagher gets going, Shea Weber maybe pots one or something, like the high end guys that you think would be chipping in here if they can put this together here in the next 2 games. I absolutely think they could force game 7 and even less than that.
The one thing that Tampa was motivated by, they still haven't raised last year's banner. They have an opportunity to clinch this at home in front of their fans, which they haven't. They have a chance to basically raise 2 cups in one day. So that's a motivation. But we'll see. Hopefully at least it's a good game, and we'll figure out. We'll see what happens there. But let's move on.
Whether or not the Tampa Bay mayor jinx is a real thing, or
oh God,
that was amazing.
That's the content online that I live for, boys.
Yeah. That is, to be fair, that's some of the best content online. I wanted to jump to a couple of other things. Gary Bettman appeared last night with Ron McLean for their annual visit. They do visit. It was a short visit. If you were expecting substance, I'm sorry. There was never going to be any substance in this interview. I guess the thing that is caused, there's a number of things, but I think a big thing that was as most criticism. I'll address the big criticism that was not talked about last night and then we'll kind of get into some of the stuff maybe that was talked about or where we were going here. Gary McLean did not ask Gary Bettman anything about the Chicago Blackhawks sexual assault allegations investigation or where that is at. I mean, yes, I guess McLean could have asked and said, on one hand, I could see that point, and it's a fair criticism that Bettman probably would have said it's an ongoing investigation, and they wouldn't have dug deep into it. I do think it's valid for the criticism of Joel, of Sportsnet for not speaking about it. But at the same time, I also wonder, I think it's a valid criticism for those that are criticizing hockey media right now for not making this a bigger story. So, were we going to get anything from that investigation, from that question, even if McLean asked it? Probably not. Should have been asked? Probably. I can see why you don't in some senses, because you're the rights holder and you have very little time. But the media as a whole, I think the big criticism that I have, more than what happened last night, is in general, the media still isn't covering this story with the passion that it is needed at this particular point.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you said, Kevin. Obviously, this is a big story, and it's going to be, as a radio graduate yourself, this is going to be a story with legs, as they would call it. It's not going to be a story that goes away anytime soon, right? And yeah, I mean, would I have liked Ron McLean, even if to ask about it, and even if Gary Bettman's answer was no, sorry, it's an ongoing investigation, I can't comment on that. At least you tried to address it. But behind the scenes, we don't know if because Gary's a very hands-on, like a very does it his way kind of guy, right? So before the interview, he could say, I'm not going to do this unless you don't ask me about the Chicago situation, because I'm not going to say anything about it, right? Like, we don't know kind of how they went about deciding what was going to be talked about or what not. Typically speaking, these are all pre-canned questions that, Gary approves and has the answers kind of pre-arranged for. But that being said, I feel like the part where Ron McLean asked him about, hey, are you going to do something about cross-checking? It's become a real problem here. And players aren't sure what they can get away with now. Like, in the rule book, it says that if you do this, it's a penalty, and you're seeing, hundreds of them per game. And Gary didn't mention it once in his reply to that. And, typical kind of lawyer, politician speak a little bit there, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to, in some ways, I feel, kind of sweep this under the rug and just not address it head on, other than what they've kind of already done. But I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see what the results of the investigation is before, we're going to see much more comment out of the NHL, let alone, members of the media. And I agree with you, Kevin. I think that media members in the hockey community should be covering this story a little more than they are.
I'm not surprised that they didn't talk about it. I mean, what else is he going to say about it? I mean, it's under investigation right now, and all the information is out there. Other than, I guess what he could have said is that he's a lawyer, so he's not going to say a damn thing about it anyway. So it'd just be, to me, yeah, you want to bring light to it. But at the same time, I just don't think that it would have been a good source of airtime. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, just in the sense that it's such a short amount of time, and there's other things that Ron McLean did bring up that he did shed light on. That was actually, I think, kind of not more important, but as far as being able to say something about it. So it really doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm very much on the same page as you, Dev. I'm not sure what he could have said that would have been new or anything different than what he said in the State of Union address, where they're literally just waiting to see what the investigation holds. And it's a very tough subject to talk about. It's a very tough subject to continue to talk about constantly when you don't have new information. So, and especially in such a short time as well. So I don't think that was the right time to talk about it. I don't think there is a right time to talk about it, but I definitely think that that wasn't a time where you're going to get anything of substance. So you got to pick and choose your battles at some point too. And I think it is important to keep the league's feet to the fire and the Blackhawks' feet to the fire in terms of what they need to do going forwards and try and make sure that something good or just something constructive comes out of this. But it's just in a 3-minute interview when like Ron and Gary have had a contentious relationship in the past. Ron would hold Gary's feet to the fire, and then I bet you there was a saying that I don't want any you need to tell me what these questions are, and if you ask me something that's not on this list, I ain't coming on again. I think that's definitely something that happened. Gary's going to make sure he controls it, and that's what it was. It was a controlled message from Gary. He did answer a few things. He did get into putting his foot in his mouth, talking about officiating and supplementary discipline a little bit, but I think it is definitely what I don't know what would have come out of that would have been constructive. It just would have been parroting what has already been said. And maybe that means that it's still in the forefront of people's minds or what, but maybe that helps it. But in terms of actually adding anything to the conversation, I don't think anything would have been added if that was discussed last night between Gary and Ron.
Yeah, that's fair. I see that as well. It's one of those situations like at 3 minutes you're not going to get anything out of it out of that either. So I see both sides of that. But if you're going to criticize Sportsnet, fair. But I think you need to criticize. I think those that are criticizing all media for not talking about it as much, I think that's where I'm at.
Like you go back to his State of the Union, like there's a lot of questions that were just that media trying to get more information, and it was the same answer over and over and over and over again. There needs to be more new information coming out before I think you're going to get constructive answers out of the league and the Chicago Blackhawks, because right now it's just they're waiting for the investigation to conclude and actually have findings to talk about.
Yeah, let's jump into our final thing.
Oh, sorry, the one thing that I loved about that conversation last night with Bettman is they asked about the Olympics, and Ron asked if there's a drop dead date, and Gary, he comes back with, "We're so past the drop dead date, I can't even tell you, but we're still trying to make it work." What? If it's a drop dead date, you drop it. It's dead. It's over with. But we're still trying to make it work. Oh, you're such a
I think we talked about it after the State of the Union, and I said I don't think it's happening because of the short time frame it needs to happen in. We're in July, and the Olympics are happening in February. Like if they're not even close now, it ain't happening.
No. It just as verbiage just was like you're a fucking idiot sometimes, man. I swear to God.
Let's touch on this. There is an update or a non-update, or the arena deal in Calgary is fascinating. To precurse this and not to that we have to bring politics into this, but we do have a mayor election going on in Calgary, as Naheed Nenshi has announced that he is not running again. So we are going to have a new mayor in there. There was a meeting in City Council yesterday. Most of the attention is on whether or not people should be still wearing masks in Calgary. We'll leave that for someone else to talk about for now. The other thing was the arena deal, which is now $67 million over budget. And there hasn't been a shovel knocked onto the ground as of yet.
it's baffling. And I mean, as far as the arena itself goes, yeah, there's no shovels in, but they are making headway with the parking lot. I've driven past that a few times, and I see some lovely trees around there. So you know what, maybe that's what's taken up the majority of the money is the lovely trees that I see over there. But I mean, like overall, it's just a shit show. It's really unfortunate that it's being. It's going the way that it is. I don't know. It blows my mind. But God, it's just a measly 67 million. Who needs that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's amazing how government mismanagement, right? And you just see it in all facets of government, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, just how they can just essentially waste taxpayer dollars. It fucking amazes me. Like it just, and then when you have, good bills that are proposed in government legislation that would invest taxpayer dollars into something worthwhile. Well, people don't want to invest in that because they think it's going to be mismanaged, like what you're seeing going on with the arena situation in Calgary, right? And it's just a sad thing to see, right? And I mean, am I surprised? No. Government mismanaging my taxpayer dollar, like no, I'm not surprised, to be honest.
I think I just want to clarify it's 67 some million over the estimated budget. Yeah, they're still working on things. It looks like there was things that were items in the development that are probably going to get knocked off to try and help mitigate that, including a practice facility and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just frustrating to watch that and see that it's so frustrating to watch that because it was such a contentious issue here in Calgary, and now we're still dealing with it, and it's just I just want to be able to move on and look forward to a new arena here in Calgary and go from there. But it'll be interesting to see what actually comes of this and if there are any major changes to what the original plan was.
So this is according to Ryan Pike. Sorry, new arena TLDR. Arena cost estimate is about 50-60 million over $550 million estimate. Design isn't final. They're working on finalizing the design and budget. No additional financial ask right now. Coming back to council July 26th. So this is where we're at. I think that this will become more of a conversation at the end of July when council's back. Right now, it's masks, it's Stampede, so I don't think it's a big deal, but this will become a bit of an issue as the season comes up and there is a mayor election. So anything else we want to talk about here very quickly?
I don't think so. I think there's we've covered all the big news. No
fluffies
past,
right, fluffies. So I know this has been a hot topic throughout the years, and I want to thank the big company Heinz for making this gonna make this happen. There's been the topic of when you buy hot dogs and you buy buns, there's not the same amount of hot dogs and buns. Heinz is actually making it happen. Thank you, Heinz. You're going to have the same amount of hot dogs and the same amount of buns, so you don't have to order 5 buns. Amazing.
Devin is so excited about that.
Oh, man. It's just mind-blowing stuff right here, guys.
Did they consult Joey Chestnut about this?
They must have. They absolutely must have. The reigning champ, Joey Chestnut.
All right. We are going to leave it there. We will be back on Thursday. We are doing our first of our 3-part series on the expansion draft. We have compiled who we are going to protect, including Joel's Montreal Canadiens. And who we have left unprotected, what we would do if we were managing the teams. So we're going to do that live Thursday night. That will be live. We'll figure out how we're going to recap the game. We're going to have to discuss that because I think we may have to do that separately, but we'll figure that out. So stay tuned, follow us on Twitter, etc., for that as well. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
I'm GordHouse09 on Twitter.
I am radio_God, GAUD on Twitter.
I am KEVOLE, Tyler TNOBLE, Chris is Schneid's, SCHNEIDZ, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. We will be back Thursday, expansion draft, part 1. And we've got another announcement coming up as well that I will save for Thursday. Thanks everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.